Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Wardle, Global Commercial Director at TDA Creative, the product design and tech talent agency. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of TDA Talks, where we dive into the future of design, innovation, and leadership. Now, my next guest has been quite busy lately, recently stepping into his new role as head of design for retail lending at PNC Bank. And I'm absolutely delighted to welcome not just a fantastic design leader, but also a really good friend, Aaron Irizarry.
Hey, thank you so
Hey,
much for having me. I'm excited to just to hang out and chat today.
me too. Aaron, I'd love for you to kick things off by telling our listeners a bit about your new role and your journey into design leadership.
Yeah, so I think I'm like a day 70-ish at PNC of joining to lead up their retail lending design organization. And so that's been fun learning about the organization, learning about the people. How do they structure design there? How do they structure product? And so it's been a really cool learning experience, as well as seeing a lot of just like positive change from being there and being able to bring some of the lessons I've learned as a design leader over time to that organization. And so I have a great team. It's awesome. And as I think about it, this kind of reminds me, as I started to get into leadership, I was a part of a team that we were building a team and growing and doing things, and it reminded me of so much of like, oh man, I wish I knew then all the stuff I know now. But it's a really cool journey to go back and see how you can progress into leadership, sometimes just by doing the work. Like for me, I didn't sit down and be like, okay, in 2.5 years I'm going to be a people leader. I just ended up a people leader. And thankfully it's something that gives me a lot of, like, it feels very rewarding, and I get a lot of satisfaction from it, and I really enjoy it. So that's been cool. And so now I'm on this new adventure bringing that there.
I love that. Amazing. Okay, so let's kick off with a bit of reflection. What
Yeah.
would you say are some of the biggest lessons you've learned in your journey as a design leader?
Yeah. Two of them. One is it's entirely okay for the people that you lead to solve a problem the way you would solve it. Naturally, as a designer who was many archaic moons ago, actually pushing a ton of pixels and doing design, to then start leading people doing that, there's a there can be a tendency, or I found for myself, there was a tendency to be looking at the work like, oh, well, I would have done it that way, or I would have done this thing, and made some mistakes as a leader early on with that approach, and maybe forcing people to design things the way I want, or I would design them for the sake of my hoping it would be right. So I had to learn a little bit to let go, and then realize that, like, okay, I have to ask myself the question: is the main problem we're trying to solve being solved for the user? Is it a good experience? Okay, yeah, maybe I wouldn't have structured it that way, done the workflow that way, used a different thing, but we're achieving the same thing. And so that was a huge lesson for me. And then I think the other one, which has been a lesson, I think it's one of the biggest lessons I've ever learned in design, is just to keep a learning mindset. Um, I read something from someone recently, and I will make sure to send it to you so you have the quote. But the quote was something along the lines of, stop trying to be right and start trying to see, and starting to, like, as opposed to going into the conversation, the situation with, okay, I have to do it this way because this is the right way, just go in ready to learn and see where you can impact some change. So
I love that. Very wise, very wise. Now, when it comes to building a strong design team, what do you typically look for in a designer's portfolio? And and how would you like it to be presented? Because I know,
yeah.
people's views differ, so I'd love to hear your point of view on this one.
Yeah. So when I think of a team, building a team, like, of course, we want to hire designers who can tactically and technically do good design.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not, I don't, though, just indexed on craft, because that only gets you so far. Like, it doesn't matter how great of a designer or how skilled you are in Figma or whatever design tools. If you're unable to work with people to get your work across the line and meet a customer need, then the craft doesn't matter that much, really. It's just kind of like art. So, and that's my personal take. But so when I think of a team, I want some really talented designers on there. But also when I'm hiring, I'm looking for, like, what is the makeup of the team? How am I going to get this team to be able to work together, and function? And will people be able to come to this team and, like, deal with ambiguity, maybe adversity, learn how to make partner relationships, which I think actually are probably all part of the craft of design as well, just maybe not the tactical using software part.
Mhm.
So when I look for a team, I look for a well-rounded team. I look for a lot of people who can maybe lean into a lot of different spaces. I also look for people who are really willing to do that. Like, hey, just, like, put me in. Where do you want me? Let's go. I'll dive into that. Let's go do that. So when I look at portfolios, I'm actually doing this right now as I hire. I'm looking at one, like, yes, is the quality of the design work showing just good design skills, good structured principles, all the things that you need to be good at design, but then how do they achieve that? And so I always ask them to show me some of the work, but then I really also want to hear how they got there and what annoying thing was told to them that they couldn't do that because of the technology or just the realities of when we work, especially working in banks or big companies. We'll always come across just hiccups in the process that aren't planned for. And so I kind of look for a little bit of that. Can they do the design well? Can they speak to it? And can they partner with others to get it across the line? Those are, so I usually ask them to present me two things. One really focused on the tactical design, the other focused on kind of like their relationship building, how they get things done. I hate to use the term, but the more soft skills side of things.
Yeah. And would you want to see that in the portfolio before you've even met the person? Because obviously for us, from a talent
Yeah.
perspective, we're guiding people on making sure their portfolio is ready to go to the hiring manager so they want to get picked for an interview. Like,
Yeah.
what would you say you'd want to see right from the outset before you've even spoken to someone? Like, how would you want to be presented? What do you want to see in the portfolio? Do you want to
Yeah.
see, obviously, the how, the why, and the
Mm-hmm.
challenge? Do you want to see that up front, or is that for later?
I think it could be a little bit of both in there, right? Because it is hard sometimes. You get a portfolio sent to you, and you're like, I have no context, so I'm just looking at this, trying to assess, and it's
Yeah.
really hard to assess when you have no context or you can't ask questions. And so what I look for is like, how are they talking about the work in the portfolio? Like, so there's a time where you can say, hey, I needed to build a mobile app for a healthcare company. My challenge that we were facing was people kept losing their healthcare cards because they don't take them with them everywhere all the time. So when they needed their card to go to the doctor, the dentist, whoever, we wanted to make a digital presence of that. So then, awesome. Now I know the problem you're solving. And then now I can look at your work through the lens of, okay, I have a general idea of what you were trying to accomplish here. And then if they want to add a little like tidbits and they're like, yeah, and actually we ended up having to do this instead, that's fine. But I do like just I try to see as much as I can if a portfolio comes across my desk or the website or whatever it is, whether it's like PDF or website, how in that context are they talking about the work? Because I can look at work and be like, that's great. That looks like very well structured and iterated on design,
Yeah.
but I don't know anything else. So maybe they can add little notes in there. I think that that's always helpful because remember you're wanting that hiring manager to see your stuff and be like, oh, I need to learn more. I need to hear more from this person. So
Yeah. And is there a certain platform you love to see portfolios presented in?
yeah, that's actually a challenge I'm facing right now. I was actually thinking about this the other day because, when you work at like a regulated company, whether it's healthcare, finance, or a big company that just has a lot of security protocols, like I have actually gotten 3 portfolios in the past 2 weeks that I couldn't view the website. I had to view it on my personal laptop to be able to view it, right?
Mhm.
Simply because InfoSec doesn't know. They're just trying to keep the company safe, So, I think one safe thing is usually always a PDF. I mean, most anybody can get a PDF without any hassle. I mean, website's good too, though. I mean, that's as long as I can look through it and get the content. I'm not necessarily super set on one specific medium. I think um, I've been seeing, and I did on my way to PNC is using Figma presentations for portfolios as well. I think that's a great opportunity for people now that that's starting to get, it's released more now. It's getting built up by Figma, so I think it'll be great.
Yeah, love that. Perfect. And there's a lot of buzz around AI in the design space at the moment, if you didn't know. Are there
Never heard of it.
any ways, never heard of it. Are there any ways you've seen AI help push design forward or any areas where you think it could do?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so much untapped potential, right? But I think what I find interesting, and this is probably just my hot take, is when we look at technology, like when Uber released their app and started getting popular, everybody wanted to be the Uber of something, right? And I think when we think of technology, the first thing we go to is like, what's the most astronomical thing we can do with this? How is AI going to revolutionize the world? And I'm like, you know what? I actually just am not good at meeting notes. Can it help me there? Like I'm thinking of like in my day to day, helping
Same.
me write summaries, doing those things. Think about building plugins, for example, like a design tool like Figma, and having a content design team that can write a learning model so they can write a plugin that actually allows them to like edit or not edit, but like review content, make sure it's adhering to the standards, and let the designer know while they're working.
Mm.
Like those are things where I think AI gives us so much opportunity to um, create awareness of things, help people work faster, automate things that nobody wants to do that much. I mean, of course, a content designer isn't always really excited to sit down and audit someone else's content all the time. And I'm not trying to speak for content designers here, but I mean, there's just things in our work days and our tasks and our processes that I think they could go smoother. And I think it helps us learn. I recently had a lot of fun teaching Chat GPT how to write like me. I fed it my own articles and gave it a couple of it. I said, hey, now write write an article on this that sounds like my tone of voice. Like that kind of stuff is just super fun. I don't know if it's going to ever do me anything productive, but it was just a
Yeah.
blast. It was a cool thing to learn. So I think it gives us an opportunity to learn quickly, to gather information quickly, and to do certain aspects of the workflow quickly.
Yeah.
Right. It extends the reach. What if you have a small design team, but you also are a small design system team and you have to govern a design system, but there's like six of you? Imagine having an automated plugin in Figma that says, hey, you're using the wrong components. Like, don't you, these are the right components now. Or, hey, this component's been updated. Little things like that, I think has so much potential.
Yeah. Love that. And what about for the design leaders listening? What are the practical ways that can help elevate the role of design within the organizations? Because I hear a lot of people have challenges around this. But
Yeah.
what would your insight and advice be there?
Uh, I don't want to give a designer answer to say, well, it depends, but there's a level of context here. It's like, what is it actually that you need to do to elevate? Why do you want to elevate design in your organization? If you don't have a good reason, then you're going to find yourself stuck chasing something that's probably not worth chasing when you can be delivering great work outcomes other place. In the sense of like a large company like PNC or any other, I mean, JP Morgan, pick a large company. I think, a lot of them now are coming around to design pretty well. Capital One has like a 700-person design team now, right? It's like that would be unheard of years ago.
Hmm.
So I think companies are coming around, but what I've seen is understanding where there's an actual place that you can provide leverage to the business and then focusing there. And it doesn't have to be some big, huge thing. It can just be small amounts of change and highlighting that, hey, we helped by doing this here. This is valuable. And then that trust starts to build over time. The thing I worry about the most in this kind of thinking about this topic is like, designers often feel like they have to force themselves to have a seat at the table.
Hmm.
They don't know what to do to get there.
Yeah.
Or if actually that's a table they want to be at. Right. And so I think that's where leaders can be really tactical in figuring out, okay, if I can actually help this one executive understand why we're doing this, deliver on it, even if it's small and incremental, but still show like, hey, we actually had an impact. No, that's perfect because then you can slowly build on that. And then you can also allow you to be fluid and change with the organization. If you need to understand that, like, yeah, there's not as much value here for designing this space anymore. But actually this place really needs it bad. Let's go over there. And so it's a challenge. Just learn the business, learn the people, figure out what matters to them, and figure out where you can apply design to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that leads into cross-functional relationships as well, isn't
Yeah,
it? Not just staying siloed as a design team, but actually immersing yourself with other parts of the business.
yeah.
Lovely. Thank you. I hate to say this, but we're going to run out of time. But I want to ask you one more question, a
Okay.
little bit of fun. I
Okay.
want you, and especially because you're new, so you might not, have got to know your new team as quickly yet. Can you tell us something funny or interesting about you that not many people know?
Yeah, that's actually going to be kind of tough. And for better or worse, I tend to be a bit of an open book. Um, uh, something funny that people don't know. I don't actually know what people don't know. I don't know what people might find interesting. Like I'm building a garden right now. Like, I think a lot of people who know me know that like my intro to design wasn't very traditional. And so
Yeah,
I have no like true college degrees. I got through design through music, through punk and hardcore music, and
yeah.
it just took off from there. And I never looked back. Something very interesting that did happen though is starting at my job, one of the designers who works for me on my team is from a town called Erie, Pennsylvania. And two of my other close friends, the Quiggle brothers, who I used to play music with, are from the same town and they all knew each other.
No
So that was a
way.
fun thing I learned in my quick time. It jogged to my memory because you were saying like, I know you haven't been there long enough to know the coworkers.
Yeah.
I think that we just had that conversation over lunch one day, and it just blew my mind. That was
Oh, I
pretty cool.
love that. It's such a small world.
Yeah.
Such a small world. Well, I want to know more about this music, Aaron. I think we need to take this offline.
Yes. We do that.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share all of your insights. And to our
Cool.
listeners, thank you for tuning in. And we'll see you soon for another episode of TDA Talks very soon. Thank you so much, Aaron.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
Thank you.